shooting happened. If you are on campus right now, the message to everybody on campus is to shelter in place. Lock yourself in a safe place until the authorities are able to get to you or provide you a message that it's safe to come out. All the other reports that you're hearing from other sources, please wait until you hear it from an official source, either from LAPD, UCLA, the fire department, who is also on scene to help support us. But as we say, we have responded in an abundance of caution. There are a lot of resources here. The city of Los Angeles has been placed on a tactical alert citywide, which merely means it's a method for LAPD to reallocate resources where we need them to make sure that we can still handle the calls for service in all of the divisions. Does not mean that there's something going on in all parts of the city. As soon as we know more about what's going on here at UCLA, we'll be more than happy to provide that to you. Again, if you are not at UCLA, we ask you to stay away from the area. If you're on the roadways and you hear sirens, please pull to the right so our resources can get here.
Started to get our first reports that there was some sort of possible shooting on the campus. Then it was shortly followed by an alert from the campus telling students to steer clear of the engineering building, that anyone near the engineering building should avoid it, that they should shelter in place, that the campus would be on lockdown, that then the LAPD confirmed that there was some sort of a shooting, that 2 victims were down. We saw an intense police response. You can see it from these aerials. Officers arriving, a large number of black and whites, and the vehicles we've seen have not just been campus police. It has also been the LAPD. A tremendous response. We've seen officers wearing tactical gear. They had their long guns drawn, starting to enter the buildings, starting to clear a couple of these buildings, and it was almost immediate. The response was very, very quick. Well, initially, Ashley, we had heard that this may have been a student-teacher dispute, that was what LAPD was looking for. But we're getting some new comments from LAPD Police Chief Charlie Beck, and in some recent comments he made, he says that this is unfolding to be a much more complicated story. We know that the gunman is a 2013 UCLA PhD grad, Minox Sarkar. The person he killed was his professor, a man he once considered his mentor. That professor's name is William Klug. Now, after all the mayhem yesterday, when law enforcement were finally able to get into that room to examine the gunman's body, what they found on him were 2 handguns legally purchased in Minnesota. He also had some some rounds in a backpack. They also found a note, and on that note were a number of names. The police chief describing that note as a kill list. Some names that were on that list, according to the LAPD chief, there was another UCLA professor. That professor is fine. But based on that note, they did go to Sarkar's Minnesota residence, and at that residence, they found the body of a woman who had been shot and killed. Now, the LAPD is asking for help to find Sarkar's car. From the timeline that they are beginning to piece together, they believe that Sarkar drove from Minnesota here to UCLA, and then the mayhem from yesterday.
It's hard to even fathom it. To have your son grow up without a dad is rough.
Loved ones grieving this morning over the shooting death of UCLA engineering professor William Klug. Klug was a husband and father of 2, the coach of his 10-year-old son's Little League team.
Never a negative word, always very positive. Kids loved working with him because he was such an easy coach to work with.
The professor of mechanical and aerospace engineering was inside the same building where he taught his classes Wednesday morning.
It was a normal day on campus, upwards of 25,000 students.
Shortly after 10 a.m., hundreds of police, SWAT officers, and the FBI stormed the Los Angeles campus after reports of 3 gunshots coming from one of the school's engineering facilities.
I'd suggest going back that way.
The campus on lockdown, police shutting down streets and paralyzing parts of the city.
People are crying, people are nervous, they're shaking.
Inside, terrified students scramble to hide.
I closed the door with keys and barricade the doors and turn off the lights.
some unable to lock the classroom doors, barricading themselves in and tying cords and belts around the handles.
Our primary goal right now is to review all of our security procedures.
Security cameras capturing the SWAT team sweeping campus buildings, only to find the bodies of Professor Klug and another as yet unidentified male, a murder-suicide.
Investigators are still piecing together just what happened in this building on the campus of UCLA. Police say shortly after 10 this morning, they responded to 911 calls from witnesses reporting gunshots in Building 4 of the UCLA engineering facility. As police responded in force, the campus was put on lockdown, shutting down streets and paralyzing parts of Los Angeles. Inside, terrified students barricaded doors, hiding from what they were told could be an active shooter.
And people are crying, people are like nervous, they're shaking, and every 2 minutes we hear that there's another shooter at a different location. And sometimes it sounds like it's moving closer to us.
Another student said she was hiding under a table in the library with about 50 others.
Currently, we have all the lights off, our windows are blocked, we had a crowbar on the doors.
As city and campus police, along with the FBI, began searching the scene, sources say they found 2 bodies, but were not clear if there was still a suspect on the loose.
Our tactical teams are going in with SWAT.
As helicopters hovered above, heavily armed SWAT officers surrounded buildings, moving in formation down alleys, eventually sweeping into buildings across campus, all captured on security cameras. Hours later, police say they no longer believed anyone was at large, but continued to clear buildings, canceling classes for the rest of the day.
There's no evidence to support outstanding suspects at this point, but we are, out of an abundance of caution, going to continue our search.
Now, police are now saying they believe this was a murder-suicide. No word yet on the identity of the shooter or of the victim or of the motive for this incident. Police would also not answer whether a suicide note was found.
We're going to begin today with some breaking news in our national lead. Deadly gunfire on a college campus. It started with a report of an active shooter. Then, of course, the inevitable lockdown. Scenes such as this one. Students using equipment, classroom equipment, to barricade themselves into the room. Posting photographs on social media as police fanned out across the 400-acre UCLA campus. Soon announcing that they had found 2 people dead. Let's bring in CNN correspondent Stephanie Elam. She's at UCLA. Stephanie, is the threat to public safety now over?
Yes, that's what we understand now, Jake. In fact, we were standing out here as students started returning to campus. It was very much deserted for most of the morning as police were searching for potential other people on the loose who may be shooting. And now what we understand is that it was a murder-suicide that happened in an office inside the building that you see behind me here, Engineering 4 on UCLA's campus. It happened around 10 o'clock in the morning local time. This happened. The campus wasn't reopened again until about 12:15 or 12:30 or so. So people now just coming back out and finding out. But the police chief saying that this murder-suicide was contained, but out of an abundance of caution, they were searching through the rest of campus to make sure that there was no other threat. But we do know that it was 2 adult men that lost their lives by gunshot wounds here in this building behind us. Still not clear who these men are or why this murder-suicide happened. But obviously a very tense time for these UCLA students as they're heading into finals. I talked to one student. He said he was concerned about what was going on campus, but he was more concerned about missing out on his finals. So many of these students getting close to graduation next Friday, so they were concerned. But at this point, I can tell you that classes here for the rest of the day are canceled, and they're expected to resume tomorrow, Jake.
All right, Stephanie.
Suicide occurred in the at about 10 this morning. A homicide and a suicide occurred in the engineering facility, part of the UCLA campus on the south side. It appears it is entirely contained. We believe there are no suspects outstanding and no continuing threat to UCLA's campus. We're in the process of releasing students from lockdown, but we need to do so in an orderly fashion and in a way that allows us to make sure there are no other participants. At that point, this investigation will be handed over to Robbery Homicide Division of the Los Angeles Police Department. The coroner will take custody of the bodies, and this will become a homicide investigation.
I'd say that there's about 100 other students with me right now.
100 other students. And so, Teddy, describe the scene.
Sort of, everybody was sort of just, getting their breakfast, and we were in line, and we got the alert, and a woman said, this is not a drill. Everybody, get to the back of the dining hall because, we just have to stay away from the windows. So we're all crowded back here. We've been here for at least an hour and a half at this point, and people are crying, people are nervous, they're shaking. We're unsure because we're getting all this information from our friends, and everybody's telling us something different, and every few minutes we hear that there's another shooter at a different location, and sometimes it sounds like it's moving closer to us. So it's just a very stressful situation.
That is the tough part in situations like these. There are not enough facts to go around to understand what's happening. How are you feeling?
I have not stopped shaking for the last hour and a half. I'm praying for any students that are, still out on campus right now. I'm praying for anybody that's in the engineering building. My roommate left. She walks past there, every morning, and I couldn't get a hold of her for a half an hour, and it was one of the scariest half hours of my life. So it's just a very anxiety-producing situation.
Yeah. These are stills. This is closed circuit, TVs within hallways. I don't know if this is specifically the engineering building where apparently the shooting took place, or just another building on campus here. But it's police searching and clearing the hallways. Can you talk me through these pictures, Bernard?
Well, listen, these are the special operations teams, the SWAT teams, if you will, that are going to have to clear these buildings, remove the students, get the students out of the way, and then search for possible suspects. Tom Fuentes brought up a really good point, and I think this is going to be the time restraint, if you will, on knocking this investigation down in time, and that is the internal cameras of the facilities. If they identified where these two victims are, they know where they are, they've already gotten them out of there to the hospital, that's going to be the first focal point of the cameras. The intelligence guys are going to go in, they're going to pull that data, they're going to look at those cameras, look at what happened prior to and after. They'll have a pretty basic idea, a good idea, of whether or not there were any other shooters.
Everyone here is just trying to stay informed about what's going on and stay away from windows and be safe.
Tell me how you were first alerted to what's happening.
We were in the middle of a meeting, and the meeting was supposed to end at 10, so maybe around 9:45. Half of us started getting Bruin alerts on our cell phones about some kind of police activity near the engineering building, and then we got more Bruin alerts after that, talking about some guy with a shotgun being on campus. Was the first time that was referenced, and then the active shooter near the engineering building, and us being on a lockdown and not being able to leave, and instructed to stay away from windows.
Drop the gun! You're next, you understand me? One down!
All the scenarios are geared towards events that have already occurred.
We got a shooter down.
The environments that they put us in typically are schools, but we make everybody aware that active shooter can happen anywhere. In churches, and movie theaters, places where there's a large mass of people that are really not expecting something to happen like that.
He's down! I'm reloaded!
Across the country, that active shooters are becoming more and more evident and problematic.
Let me see your hand!
We're teaching them how to approach a location, how to get in. Our #1 goal in teaching active shooters is to stop the killing. But the second goal that we're looking for is to stop the dying.
Mary, where you at? I'll call you out, find you, God dang it!
Well, active shooter is probably one of the worst scenarios a police officer can handle. Life or death. It's what we're paid for. We need to neutralize the threat to save lives.
These simunition training, it's as close to real life as you can get them. Their heart rate is spiking, they're nervous. It's the best you're ever going to do without actually shooting real bullets at a person.
There have been, suspicious men with guns, but no shots have been fired kind of thing, and they're coming in to investigate, and it turns into a shooting. They've dealt with explosives, IED kind of awareness.
I'm gonna kill him in 10 seconds. 10, 9.
They're also dealing with hostage situations.
Training builds confidence. A lot of these guys don't have much confidence because they don't get environments like this.
The lessons we learn under stress is the lessons we retain the longest.
I mean, this was actually a really good job. All this done right here.
Weeks after they've gone through the training, they've actually been involved in incidences, and it's helped them survive those incidences, so it is helping.